test, no?
Over here somewhere.
The one before.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, okay, right. Okay. Nice.
Yeah, I remember.
Right. So we're basically saying that the Indian of Bechira, free choice, is right up there with the lottery, and even more so. And the difference between them basically is that they're both beyond the intellect, they're both beyond the will. But when you're stuck with the lottery, you know, is that you go beyond your will, and you don't know how, because everything's equal, you don't know how to determine your will. So you sort of leave it up to a lottery, and that's the idea that there's still a certain level of limitation there, because then you're forced to do what the lottery says. You're basically reliant on this outside force.
When you say lottery, you mean like
throwing a lottery.
I don't know how to decide between
Flip a
one
coin.
and two, and I flip a coin.
Yeah.
Which I do.
Careful.
Careful.
I call it God's will. When there's no one else to ask, you know what I mean?
Well, that's what we're getting to here. Is like there is someone else to ask, and it's you. You yourself. In other words, that's what we're saying. Is like the whole idea is that this level of the lottery, it is basically a place where it's sort of like everything's equal. It could go either way, right?
Like a fork in the road.
Like a fork in the road. So you have a choice, right? But what we're saying is that that level of choice, where everything's equal, it has a certain like very, very high level, but at the same time it has a very kind of low level, because you're sort of at the same time sort of denying the essential chosenness of the thing. In other words, then you tap into that by making the choice yourself, not relying on the lottery. Okay, we're saying basically each one has a certain quality, but the choice is higher. Because with the lottery, the lottery is what makes your decision, whereas when the person is the person making the decision, so you're not leaving it up to, so to speak, chance.
See, I always thought that was God's will. You know what I mean? Like I want to do my will, but I want my will to be in line with God's will. And in that scenario with the fork in the road, I would sometimes flip a coin.
I hear you there.
You know what I mean?
No, I do. I mean, there's
the greater of two goods.
There's an Indian like that. It is in Kedusha that we find such a thing as a lottery. You know, as we said, like in the Yom Kippur, they also flipped a coin, basically, right? They chose lots. The whole idea is that it has a certain level of holiness. It's a very high level of holiness, but there's still a certain level of negativity that comes out of it. That's what we're saying. Because ultimately what we're getting to is that it's a place where everything is equal, and therefore good and bad are also equal. So, for example, I mean, you're just coming into a long conversation, but in short, we'll say that Haman was trying to throw a lottery in order to wipe out the Jews, because he felt like specifically in the place of the lottery he could achieve his goal of wiping out the Jews. That if it was coming from a place of intellect, or it's coming a place even from will, then at those levels it's impossible to wipe out the Jews, because they have a certain predominance in terms of what they call the Seder Ishtalshelus, in terms of like the justice system and the rules. When there is, if you do look at it intellectually, if you do look at it at anything that is even bears a mark of intellectual, then the Jewish people could never be wiped out, because they have a certain place of importance. Their deeds, where deeds matter, where there's a way to choose, so you would never undo the Jews. They can't be undone because they have a certain importance, because their deeds are meritorious in general. So he was trying to go to a place where deeds were completely insignificant, because there's such a level of divinity which is so far beyond the world that it's like Hashem doesn't even know what's going on in the world. It's beyond the creation. And so at that level, basically it's possible, since deeds are of no significance, there's no justice system, it's possible to obtain from there a complete undoing of the Jewish people. That's what he was shooting for. So it has this quality. He was going sort of for the top, what he could imagine as the top. What he didn't know is that there's something higher than that. That even when you get there, it's not what you think. It's not that basically everything's equal and it doesn't matter and Hashem is not looking and there's no basically there's no clarity even in that place where it looks like all things are equal. But on the contrary, there's this level called choice, where basically even when all things are equal, you still have the power to not be sort of subjugated to that, and therefore trapped by that and powerless, but you actually have a choice to make, and that you can control the situation even when there is no clear reason to choose one over the other. But you have this choice. It's like a power in your hand. You want to say something, Sim?
Yeah, I had like a breakthrough. It's not a question. It's more like just adding to the lecture. So, all right. So what it's basically in our lives, right? It's like it's above good and bad, right? Meaning when we get to a point where it's left or right, if we have doubt, like we don't know which way to go, you're going to flip a coin, that's like Amalek, we're doubting, we don't know which way to go. But in reality, there is no right and wrong, right? There's either, you make a choice, and it's either right, or it's, you learn, and it's maybe the wrong choice, but it's not wrong, it's Hashem teaching you a lesson, and you learn from it, and you move on. So what it's saying is the highest level is, you make a choice, you're firm with it, and it's either right, or you learn and you move on. It's not like there's right and wrong at this level, it's right, or move on, or learn, or get back up and try again,
Right.
But by flipping a coin, you're basically giving your power of choice, and you're saying, I don't even know what's going on, and does that make sense? Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, in other words, just on a very simple level in our lives, instead of flipping a coin, you got to make the choice, and the choice has to come from what you determine to be God's will. In other words, it's not, you're taking matters into your own hands and you're saying this is the more godly path. You have to choose which one you think is going to bring you closer to Hashem. That's sort of the whole secret of serving God. You can leave it up and say, well, if it's God's will, maybe I should eat this, maybe I shouldn't, I'll flip a coin. So it's not kosher, right? So, in other words, you have to like find within yourself which one makes God happier, It's it forces you to look a little bit deeper, I guess. And it forces you to realize that there is something essentially more valuable than the other. And that's basically what we're saying, that even at the highest levels, when like all is equal, and basically Hashem didn't even make the world yet, so who cares if good is better than evil or evil is better than good? It's like not significant. Even there, which we're about to say now, there's a certain chosenness and like a certain real anchoring of what is important for Hashem. All right, but let's see it instead. We're just about to wrap up the whole mimer here. So just from the last point, which is actually the top paragraph on page Kuf Tzadik Hey, right at the second line down, there's a period there in the middle. It says, the goral, the union of a lottery, hu hadarga benefesh shi mugderes umuchreches. Right? So the idea of the lottery is a level of the soul which is still limited and forced. Like we were saying, you sort of don't have an option when you throw the lottery. You put yourself into the hands of the lottery. In this, that two things are equal, right? So when two things are equal, you wind up being like submitted to that. You wind up being subjugated to that. You don't know what to do. You're powerless in front of two equal things, and therefore you throw a lottery, which basically limits the soul in a state when all things are equal. You become limited and forced because of that situation. Whereas the idea of Bechira is that you're not limited even in that situation when two things are equal. Even when two things are equal, you're empowered to do something about it, and you're not in a state of being subjected to whatever may be. Kol el devarim shavim l'gab, which even when it comes to things which are completely equal to you, right at that moment you want to flip a coin, it's like a powerful situation. It means you've come to the true state of your free choice. What makes you actually like a human being and a Jew is exactly what you encounter when you come to this situation where it's seemingly there's no difference between them. So there you can suddenly sort of unleash this power of free choice. You can decide, because we said before that real choice is only in a place when two things seem equal. Because when one thing is, has leaning more due to the pace of intellect, or even do more because of the will that you're just sort of leaning there, that's not a free choice. The only place you can really make free choice is when they're exactly equal in front of your eyes. And so therefore the idea is you're not subjugated to the coin flip, you are able to choose. This is an unbelievable power in a person's soul. Okay, so now we're going to continue forward. V'yesh lomar, we can say the bechira yeshnam shnei ha'inyanim. When it comes to choice, there's really two things. Hadarga de nefesh shel hamayla meseichel, there's the level of the soul, which is above intellect, shelagaba shnei devarim hem shavim, which to this level of the soul, which is above intellect, these two things are equal. Right, so you're dealing with a certain level of your soul where it's beyond the intellect and you cannot determine intellectually from the two, and that's called dargas hagoro. That's the level called the goro. V'zeshu bocher kamo sherotze, and this level that you now choose, right, kamo sherotze, as you want, hagam sheshnei devarim hem shavim lagam. Even though they're two completely equal things, you elicit a will, right, from your own self. You not allow the will to be forged for you. Hu ba me'etzem hanefesh. This comes from the essence of the soul. So what we're seeing here is that basically you have the lottery and the essence. The lottery is sort of like the powers in the soul which are above your intellect, right? But the choice comes from the essence of the soul itself. And by choosing, hamshacha me'etzem ladarga lagorel, right? The hamshacha me'etzem ladarga lagorel, right? By choosing the hamshacha from the etzem, right? Lahadarga lagorel, you draw down a force from the essence into the level of the gorel, because we just got through saying gorel is a level below the essence, right? And you go into the essence and you're tapping into the essence, and then you draw down from the essence into the level of the gorel. Hadarga shelagabe shnei devarim hem shavim. Where's the level of the gorel? The level of the gorel is the place in your soul when you can't decide based on anything, not based on your intellect, not based on your will. It's just like it's sitting there, two options in front of you. That's a place of your soul which is sort of frozen, that everything's equal, right? There's no way of knowing, no way of choosing. But nonetheless, you go up to a place of choice and you draw down into that unknowable place, basically. That you bring it into the goral where everything's equal, that gam hagoral. Now, even the goral level, hagam shemitzad atzmo, even though on its own, if it wouldn't have recourse and access to the essence, if it was on its own, efshar lios b'shnei ofanim, it could just always be in two ways, left or right at the fork, and it will just stay there forever if it was left to its own devices. It has no way of getting out of that situation. That's why you throw a coin. It's completely up to chance. But now you've gone into the level of choice. You've tapped into the essence. You draw down from there. Now you put into the goral level of your soul, which basically on its own would be left to having no recourse to a direction. You make it so that it's kafi habachira. You put it so that it goes, the goral itself goes in accordance with your choice. So that level of the lottery inside of you now is forced, but not by a coin toss, by your own soul, by your own essential soul. The lottery aspect of you, which is like this unknowing place where it doesn't matter, nothing matters, it now does matter. That level of the lottery in your soul has changed to become affected by your choice. So you no longer have this like sort of unknowable, wishy-washy area of you which is just stuck and has no decision that it can make. You've made a decision and it comes down and puts that place in you which was all things are equal, so that now not all things are equal.
So, I mean, seems to me, it's never a situation where things are totally equal.
There
In
is.
essence, so that's when we tap into our essence.
Right.
We are seeing there is a
Right.
difference between the two.
Right. When you tap into your essence, you remove this like
It's an appearance of
exactly
equalness,
the
but it's
appearance
not
of the
really
girl.
equal.
Exactly.
Wow, yeah.
And if you think about it, it kind of makes it's very deep. Like we talk about, there's two powers of Hashem. There's the power of the finite. There's the power of the infinite. We talk about it all the time. There's what we call the koach, of gavul, of limitation, and the koach of bli gavul, of unlimitedness. Right? Now, which one is higher? Can we say such a thing? Because usually we talk about the idea that these two together basically make up Hashem, that He is a combination of infinite and finite together, and that's His essence, right? But which one is higher? Let's talk about it for a second.
Finite.
Depends on the perspective, really.
It's got to be the.
So you're saying that's like the level of the goral, right? You can't choose. No, think about it. What you're saying is beautiful, right? I'm posing the perfect question to this
Yeah.
class right now. Because basically, theoretically, by definition, as you're basically pointing out, neither is higher, right? You can't choose. All you can do if you want to throw a coin if you want to. But right, when it comes down to it, they're equal because Hashem they're two powers. How can you choose one over the other? But here's the secret, gentlemen. The finite is higher. The finite, not necessarily finite things in this world, but the power of finite. The koach hagvul is higher than the koach habli gvul. That's what we say, and that's why Hashem created the world in such a way that in Judaism the night comes before the day. Borei, it says, what is it? Gol el or mipnei choshek v'choshek mipnei or, right? That he gol el or mipnei choshek. We say in the davening, right? When it's Mari, when it's like we're praising sort of like God for the night. Gol el or mipnei choshek. He rolls away the light because of the darkness that was there. In other words, basically, what's the idea? That the darkness comes first. They always talk about the idea of the darkness is the idea of finite, right? And the light is the idea of infinite. The darkness is finite because it's the idea of bli gevul, sort of not revealing yourself, holding back, tzimtzum. Okay, that makes sense why darkness is connected with gevul, with limitation. Right? Because it's the idea of not allowing infinite expansion. It holds back the expansion of the light. So that, we say, is the koach of gevul, the power of limitation. And what do we always say, basically? That light is higher than darkness. Right? Because the whole idea the other way around. That darkness is higher than light, we always talk about. Why is darkness higher than light by definition? Because the light is basically infinitely trying to reveal this unknowable thing. And why is it that the first sort of expression of the light is that it's an or ein sof? It goes infinitely trying to express, because the thing that it's trying to express is unexpressible. It's finite in a certain, it's like essential. It's like a oneness of simplicity that cannot really ever be fully expressed. And therefore, when you try to express it, infinite expressions come off of it. It's like you try and we talk about this in previous classes. I would say like that my father went to this linguistics class and they held up a spoon. Remember this story? And they said everyone in the room should try and tell me what this is. And one guy says a spoon. Another guy says no. And the professor wasn't answering anyone, so they had to keep coming up with definitions. And this one comes a metal object. No, something you eat with. No. So basically he did the whole class. It was like an hour long. People were coming up with expressions. The thing itself, which is a finite thing basically to a certain degree. You can never, because it's sort of beyond expression, it's gevul, it's not showing itself, it's like darkness in its essential state. It can be described infinitely, theoretically. And that's what the idea is, the or ein sof, the light which comes off the infinite, it's basically an attempt to describe the darkness. And therefore, since the darkness can never really be described because it's the power of gevul, it's dark, it doesn't lend itself to and extend itself to be a particular thing. Therefore, if you want to describe it, it goes on forever, the description. And like it says in Kabbalah, in the Zohar, like a candle, right, that all the light in the room and all these rays, they're really just all expressions of this one thing. It's just that the one thing, it goes to every corner and every place and every side, and all the light that you see is not even touching the actual candle, the source of all this light. The source of all the light is a finite thing. Whereas the expression of this light goes into every corner and every place and every side because it's trying to express a finite thing, and you can express a finite thing infinitely. So the or ein sof is really just an expression, which is infinite, is an expression of the power of gevul, which is finite. And so we talk about this idea that in the source of all things, finite precedes infinite. And that's why even at the bottom of this hishtalshelus, why Hashem chooses, so to speak, mitzvahs over averas, and there's this whole idea that He chooses the Jews, He chooses the land, He chooses a certain house and a mountain in a certain place, like all this chosenness basically that we are all caught up on, of basically doing things exactly right according to the letter of the law. One could say, like, why does Hashem care about these silly details? Like basically this is what sort of Christianity, thankfully, no thanks, added to the whole concept. Is like, listen, the rules don't matter. Hashem is above the rules. All you got to do is love. Love your neighbor, man. So because the rules basically, you're just confining Hashem to like something finite. He's much bigger than that. He's much bigger than these finite rules. You can't hold him down like that. Whereas we say, no, everything has to be measured and limited. If you don't measure it such and such, you don't find God. Even though we're the same people who brought to the world the notion that everything is God, and therefore all things are seemingly equal because everything is God, those same people who brought that to the world say, this is where you find God and not over there. And that's because ultimately the finiteness of God is higher than His infiniteness. And therefore, if you go all the way up and you get sort of stuck in this place where everything's one, everything's infinite, you're stuck. Because basically, there's no difference of good and evil. You're relegated to throwing a coin, basically, because there is no way to choose at that level. Like everything's equal. That's not God. You go a little bit higher to the essence of God, and suddenly He makes a choice, which means He does want one thing over the other in this infinite creation where all seemingly is equal. And not only when He makes, so inside of His very essence, there's actually a choice. He's like this, and He's not like that. It's crazy. And with that choice, that's what we're saying now in the Maimer. Once you access that level of choice then permeates the entire existence, so that even in the level of Goral, which is Or Ein Sof, and all things are equal, and it's above the world, and there's no way of choosing, even in that level, you have to do what the boss says, basically. And the boss wants one thing over another. Even in the level of Goral, he brings that there. You following this?
Yeah.
So the same thing happens inside of you, is what he's saying right now. You can go to your free choice. When everything's equal and all is the same, and you go find this sort of essential place of choice, you actually make a imprint on the level of your soul where it's the lottery, and you make it so the lottery is not a lottery anymore. It's still a lottery, but the lottery will always come out. You control the coin cost. Put it like that. It's an amazing thing. You can control the way the coin is going to land, because the all things are equal now has a master, right? And you've chosen that even luck is going to come out in this direction, because there's something higher than luck, which creates the luck, and that's free choice. Yeah. Mamish, but isn't that what you create your own luck? Isn't that like an empowering concept? In other words,
And the important thing is to make a choice and not
Exactly.
be paralyzed by not
That's right.
knowing.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
I think that's like Rabbi Nachman's life is a narrow bridge, and the most important thing is to move through your fear. It's really it's addressing that. It's like you've come to places where you don't know which way to go, but the important thing is to make a choice and move forward.
Pulling out Rabbi Nachman quotes.
Listen, yeah. Okay.
I don't like
Maybe after class. With a high emphasis on maybe. But still, I'm just saying. No, but anyway, we're saying, in other words, it's true. In general, that's the purpose of the Chassidus, to explain
I don't know. I saw
the previous masters. Al Yidei Bachira, you affect the Goral. This is what we're saying. That Gam the Goral, also here we're still in this, right in this parentheses area. Also the Goral, even though Mitzad Atzmo Efshar Lios B'Shnei Ofanim, even though on its own it could be either way, it becomes according to the will. It now has a master. And this, the Rebbe now brings a few psukim to sort of show us that the Torah is teaching us this all over the place, as usual. And he says, Al derech masha kasuv, this is like what it says, Ata tomich gorali. That you, it's Tehillim, yeah. You are the support of my goral. Goral can sometimes means like lot, right? Sometimes you think it's like my lot in life, right? My goral is like my lot in life, but really it means the lottery. So it says Hashem, Ata tomich gorali. You support my lottery, which means HaKadosh Baruch Hu tomech es hagora, which means He's the supporter of the lottery. He's the one who's tomech is also someone who's like, when you say support, it doesn't mean like you're supporting it from underneath. It means you're the like tomchei tamimim, right? It means the supporters of the Torah, basically. Like you're the one giving it to it. You give the hashpah to it. When you're supporting it, it means you're giving the hashpah. You're controlling it. The HaKadosh Baruch is tomech es hagora. He is the one who supports and gives the hashpah to the goral. So that it should be in accordance with the Atzmus, that it does what the essence of Hashem wants. So with all things seemingly equal, which is a level of divinity, but that itself becomes forged through the essential level of God, who actually wants something over another thing. This is also what it says. So he brings one pasuk to show this, and he brings another pasuk. It says, "Yivchar lanu es nachlasenu es gaon Yaakov." So it says like this. This is a pasuk that we say. Basically, it's from the Chumash. It says, "Yivchar lanu es nachlasenu." Choose for us es nachlasenu, our inheritance, es gaon Yaakov, right? And what is our inheritance? Gaon Yaakov, like the strength of Yaakov, right? Choose basically our inheritance, the strength of Yaakov. We have to see a little bit further to understand this. To be Yaakov Kasiv, when it comes to Yaakov, it says, Yaakov Chevel Nachlaso, right? Yaakov is the rope to his inheritance. We talked about this pasuk in different contexts in Basi Lagani, that the rope represents sort of this rope of 613 strands, which connects us to the Or Ein Sof and so forth. But here he's saying Yaakov Chevel Nachlaso, that in this case the word Chevel, which means rope, usually Targumunculus Yaakov Adav Achasante. It means that basically the lot of his inheritance. Yaakov Chevel Nachlaso is Yaakov, the lot of his inheritance. The Adav in Aramaic equals Gorel, means lottery in Hebrew. And therefore, go back to the previous pasuk that we quoted, Yivchar lanu es nachlasenu, right? Choose for us our inheritance as Gaon Yaakov, right? That basically the Yaakov's inheritance in general is a lottery. It could go either way. And we're saying to Hashem, choose for us our inheritance, Yaakov's inheritance, because theoretically, there's a certain level of divinity when it doesn't matter to you what's going to happen with us. Because there's the level where all things are equal. So we beg to Hashem, choose our inheritance for us. Because if you're going to leave it up to the level of lottery, Haman could also win. So the Indian of Yivchar as Gaon Yaakov, the idea is, now going back to the line where we left off, the idea of choose the strength of Yaakov, it's really a choice you have to make. It's not so pasha, because the level of, like, sort of all things are equal, it's a lottery. It could go either way with us. Shagam b'dargas hagoral shelamayla mishtalshlus. And what we're saying is that even at the level of the goral, which is above the yishtalshlus, shakol shavim sham, where everything is really equal, the world hasn't been created yet, the justice system hasn't created yet, no one has deeds, no one has merits, no one has a reason to be chosen over anybody else. Ha-bechira hi b'Yisrael dafka. Nonetheless, the choice is for the Jewish people. Now this is really deep, because basically we're saying that Hashem chooses us for no reason whatsoever. This is what it means to be the chosenness of the Jewish people has nothing to do with anything that we accomplished, any value to our soul, any mitzvahs that we do, and anything, any merits of our forefathers, nothing. At the end of the day, it's all equal. And the only reason why there's such a thing is like a Jewish person having this wondrous thing where he got the Torah and the whole world exists for him and everything, is because of a choice that Hashem made, and this choice is in His very essence. It's just because Hashem chooses us. And that's what we're saying to Hashem. Yivchar lanu es nachlasenu es Gaon Yaakov. Please choose us like continuously, because if you wouldn't choose us, really there's no reason to choose one over the other, because Or Ein Sof is Or Ein Sof. Right? Everything is equal.
Wait, but everything that we learn in Judaism is that it does matter to Hashem.
What we do.
Yeah, we don't keep Shabbat, kill us.
Except what about Yom Kippur or Purim? All of a sudden, it doesn't matter what you did.
No, he says cut them off from their people. I mean, every place you look, we got a consequence if we're not behaving the way His Torah told us.
Again, that's true when it comes to the Seder Hishtalshelus.
On this level.
Okay.
The Seder Hishtalshelus is where the justice system is initiated.
Okay.
And yeah, no one's
So
arguing.
you're saying this choice is before Hashem thinks of any of those things?
Yeah.
Right.
In other words, we're saying that the lottery level is already before that. The lottery is already a state where it doesn't matter because Hashem didn't make the spheros yet. He didn't make the side of chesed, the side of glory. He didn't create punishment and reward yet. It's just like it's a place of just simply infinite light, which is undifferentiated.
But as soon as he gets married to us, it matters.
But when did he get married to us? That's the point.
After he chose.
Okay, in a different...
No. What I'm trying to say is before. In other words, and that's what's so weird. If you want to say that he created a justice system and then the Jews take precedence, so that makes total sense. That you don't have to. And Haman even knew that, and that's why he didn't have even though Achashverosh was the king. We talked about it, and Achris Vereshis Shalom. I don't want to confuse you guys, but there was the level of even in the days of Achashverosh, there was a certain level of Achris and Reshis after and before, dark and light were all equal. But it was still had what to do with the Seder Ishtalshlus, because even in Achashverosh's kingdom there was a difference between the servants versus the garden versus the house. You were here for these classes, right? In other words, not to confuse. But the idea is that even Haman knew that if there's going to be any shaykhs whatsoever to the justice system, to the Seder Ishtalshlus, he might be able to bully the Jews, but he can never undo the Jews. Because there's no way to get rid of the Jewish people in the midst of a justice system. We are good. We do good things. We do mitzvahs. We have a place. You can't just like undo someone from existence because you want to overpower them in a justice system. There's justice, right? So you can't undo. Even though let's say we sin and we're in gullus and you can conceal us, you can hurt us, you can put us down, you could enslave us. You can't make us go away because we have some merits. So even Haman knew that if underneath in the realm of justice, you can't. You have to answer to your deeds. So he went to the Goral for this very reason. He was going to a place where before Hashem created the world, before Hashem created the justice system, there we can say that there's no such thing as a justice system, and therefore darkness and light are completely equal. There's no reason to choose one or the other. And what we're saying is that even at that level, it really doesn't matter what you do. Because at that level, let's go into that level for a second, right? We're in that level, all of a sudden, there's no creation. There's no nothing. There's no mitzvahs, there's no Torah, there's no nothing. So how can it matter what you do? There's no you even. So at that level, theoretically, you could determine that you could bring down a level where you could undo the existence of the Jewish people, because there's no merits don't matter. And what we're saying is that really even above that, the level where it doesn't matter, which is seemingly the highest thing beyond the world, there's something higher than that. And that's the very essence of Hashem. And strangely, in some peculiar way, the Jews even there matter more, where there's no reason for them to matter. It's called free choice. Everything's equal, but I'm not going to leave it up to the lottery, which maybe these people will be wiped out because really nothing matters. Even at that level of nothing matters, the Jews matter more. Why? Because Hashem chose them from a place of free choice. And there's no sense to that whatsoever. It's
like Hashem.
Okay. In other words, but why? There's no why in that.
He made us like that.
I'm just saying, that's a very crazy thing. It's like the belovedness is, you're right, it's like a son that you don't...
You're saying it's almost as though Hashem didn't even have a choice. He just likes...
No. At the level of the lottery, Hashem has no choice. And there's literally no choice. But here's the point. Hashem has a choice. The choice being that all things being equal, I choose them. It doesn't make any sense.
That's a lower level already, when he's going to choose.
No, the choice is from the very essence. The choice is that when all things are equal. Remember, we said, when do you choose? You can real choice is only relevant when two things are completely equal. If you have a reason to choose one over the other, that's not called free choice. It's when you literally have no reason to choose and you're at the level of lottery. You might as well throw a coin because there's nowhere to go with this. And nonetheless, you just choose. That's where he chose the Jews. It's essential to him in some way that when you're standing there at the fork in the road, if you look deep enough into your soul and make a choice and don't flip a coin, it's almost impossible to know where that choice is coming from. It's coming from some essential, undefinable, unexplainable place in you, but you made that choice. That's the choice Hashem when He makes it for the Jewish people.
But I thought
It's crazy.
Shows that Hashem offered the Torah to other people, and
Yeah, but that was only. You're right, but that was only. It's not like he didn't know that they weren't going to accept it. It's like the union of Bilam. He gave prophecy to a non-Jew, like Bilam had the same level of prophecy of Moshe, because he said, if I only gave prophecy to Moshe, the nations will come complaining one day and they'll be justified. If you would have given us a prophet like Moshe, we would have done good. So we gave them a prophet like Moshe. Same thing. Hashem, they said, well, you didn't give us the Torah, so we offered them the Torah. Knowing basically they wouldn't accept it because he knows what he's dealing with. But this is the thing.
For his question, I think something just clicked. So like where there's a justice system, that's action, right? So we have to choose our action, and our actions can be judged good and bad. But this is talking about actually thought, right? Thought is above good and bad. I can have a bad thought or a good thought, but I'm not getting a justice system on my thoughts.
You are.
No, I can have a bad thought because bad thoughts pop in my head all the time, but then I steer it back to good.
Okay.
So really, it's a thought. This is thought, speech, and action. And
Okay.
action is what he's talking about. But this is talking about in a thought, consciousness. Our thoughts, the lottery, our consciousness, our thoughts are above good and bad.
All right, I'm not sure I'm like totally following you on that one, but
Okay.
just because when you get into thought, I don't know, it's not, it is
I see what
like,
you're saying.
thought's like action in a certain sense, but there's something there.
Okay.
So, okay. I'm just getting some,
Choice comes from thought.
oh,
Yeah, but
okay.
Choose an action to true thought.
So let's go on, yeah? We're going to wrap it up here. Wrapping it up. So what we just got through saying is that if you hit the will, you actually sort of calculate and calibrate the place of the lottery. The lottery is no longer a lottery because the lottery has a boss, and the lottery is it's going to turn out just the way you wanted it to turn out. There's no more questions because you went to the very root. If at the very finite root, where the root is finite, the root chooses. It's a crazy thing to think about, that you could actually say there is the power of Hashem's finite is higher than his infinite, because at that highest place he's already chosen something finite. It's crazy. Therefore, even in the realm of infinite, it's already leaning in a certain direction. It's never all things are equal as far as Hashem is concerned, because the Goral is determined by his choice. So, going on to test. Vezeu al kain karu liyamim ha'elu Purim. That's why we say that Hashem called these days Purim al Shem HaPur. If you recall the original question from the Maimer, we said, why are we calling the holiday after Haman's lot, right? Al Shem HaPur. That even if you want to say we're going to call it on the lottery in general, which is a high level, which has like a shaykhs to Yom Kippur, but HaPur, the one that Haman threw, why are we calling the whole holiday after that? Shnefilas hagora lamayla haisa kafi kavanas habechiras haatzmos. And what we're really saying is that the throwing of the lottery above was really according to the kavana of Hashem's essential choice. In other words, that when you throw the lottery and it's like you leave it to that place, it's not really random. Because even the lottery is going to be directed by Hashem's essential choice, which has an impact on that place of everything goes. Dagam sha'ach Esav leYaakov. Right, and this is sort of the famous way of remembering this whole thing. It says even though that Esav and Yaakov were brothers, Ach also comes from the word Achas, Achdus, one. There's really no distinction between Esav and Yaakov. They were Pashat twins, right? Mikol Makom, nonetheless, v'oev es Yaakov es Esav sanesi. Nonetheless, the pasuk goes on to say, I love Yaakov and I hate Esav. Even though they're the same. In other words, at a certain level, there's no distinguishing factors between them. At a certain level, they're twins. Nonetheless, Hashem chooses, I love Yaakov and Esav I hate. And how is that? That through the Mesiras Nefesh of the Jewish people, which carried them through the entire year of the Purim story. And the idea of Mesiras Nefesh comes from, in a Jew, the essence of our soul. The Mesiras Nefesh equally sort of makes no sense. That's the ultimate choice that you can make, basically. That it's beyond intellect, it's beyond will, right? You want to live also. So the fact that you're willing to give your soul over to God, where's that coming from in you? It's not really, you doing it. It's like the official, essential you that basically has no other choice to a certain degree. I mean, it has a choice. We're going to see this is the whole question of what Mesiras Nefesh. Do you have a choice in it or not? But in other words, oftentimes we say that, like in many places, he's going to address this in. Well, I really thought we were going to finish this mimer today. Sorry, we're just babbling a lot. But he says that usually we say, like in Basi Lagani, in the chapters in Tanya, it says that at that level of your soul, you have really no choice but to give up your life. Like we always talk about, if a person would be presented with a real test, that you have to bow down to this idol, and you know that in the bowing down to this idol, you can't fool yourself. The shtus like sort of removes itself, and you're left with your raw essence. You would say, kill me first. Like a Jew cannot go against his essential godly nature. Right? So at that level, he just is one with God. And so that's what we're saying, that through this Indian of Mesiras Nefesh, that the Jewish people had the whole year, which comes from the essence of the soul. Like, for what reason did you decide to throw your life away and just basically sanctify Hashem's name in public? Because you can't help it, basically. That's who you are. You got to your raw core. Hainu mitzada bechira de etzem neshama ba'atzmus. And now he's saying something kind of deeper, which we don't usually see in the Maimarim. That how did you really get to the Mesiras Nefesh in your soul? It's not that it just comes out automatically by being presented with a test, like we often always say. But here it's because you chose, right? You got mitzad the bechira de etzem neshama. You got to the essence of your soul. Yes, this test like washed away all the fluff and brought you to your essence of your soul. But at that place, you still have to make a choice. Even the essence of your soul must make a choice. And it must choose, basically, the atzmus. It must choose what's true with Hashem. And this also kind of answers a question that I always had. It says by Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai that he was in front of his Talmidim, and it was the last day of his life, and he was crying. And they said, like, why are you crying? And he said, because I don't know which way they're going to take me. Right, when he goes to, like, when he passes away, and they said, Master, like, what are you talking about? Your Torah never ceased from your mouth, like, you're a perfect tzaddik. Where else could they take you but Gan Eden? And basically, what it says in the Chassidus is that when it comes to his revealed powers, then he was unquestionably a tzaddik. In other words, his thought, speech, and action were perfect. His midos were perfect. His mochin was perfect. His will was perfect. But the question is that the essence of a person you can't really see, because all your deeds can basically just be like accomplished through his skafi, and you're just like, your output is like is all good, but it might all be overshadowing like a certain essential flaw which you've not fixed, like your essence, and your essence cannot be seen, and therefore, like, maybe since he didn't know what was with his essence, because all of his expressions were totally perfect. That wasn't his question. He knew, of course, that he was externally perfect, but was worrying him was what was with the essence of his soul, and that always bothered me. The essence of a soul is good. What are you talking about? Like, if you get to the essence, it's for sure good. But here the Rebbe's tapping into this. He's saying, when you get to the essence of your soul, guess what? That's where you have this choice. Just like Hashem, you go to the essence. It's not a lottery. Hashem doesn't just choose the Jews like by an automatic, because that's when you go there, it chooses the Jews. That's a lottery. He chooses the Jews from that place. It's a free choice. He has to decide. So we're saying the Jewish people have this Mesiras Nefesh, and the whole time, it's because they got to the essence of their soul, and at that point, it required them to choose God, and they did. So let's look at this like rather long footnote, but which basically discusses that very thing. So he says like this. Okay, it says, footnote 69. In the Tanya, right, it says, in the end of chapter 18, it says, She'i yashar klal lichpor ba'Hashem echad. It says that the soul, it's impossible for it to deny God, which is what I was saying before. And it explains elsewhere that Kevan, the Mesiras Nefesh, is the Gili of the Yechida. Since Mesiras Nefesh is basically the revelation of the Yechida of your soul. She'ein keneged le'umat zeh, where the Yechida does not have a corresponding other side. There's no klippa which can oppose the Yechida. That's why it's called the Yechida. It's only one. At all the stages of the Hishtalshlus, you have your holiness and you have your opposition to holiness that can oppose it with klippa. But when you get to the Yechida, it's just God. It's just one. And therefore, if you release your Yechida, there's nothing to oppose it. And therefore, you'll have Mesiras Nefesh. Therefore, your Mesiras Nefesh is in such a way that you cannot deny Hashem. This is what it says in Tanya. Because you release that part of yourself, which is basically, there is no other side, it's only the godliness there. He says, Aval, this is sort of the Rebbe's Chiddush, and it's big. So if that was really the case, it would really take away free will. At the highest levels of your soul, it would remove the concept of free will. Because at a certain level, you can't choose anything other but God. And the only choice is really at like lower levels of your soul. You have this struggle going on. But if you should come to the point where your Yechida is revealed, you no longer have free will. That's kind of a problem because it removes the strong pillar of Torah mitzvahs, as Rambam says, that free will, don't mess with it. Even though we don't always understand it, he says over there, and it's like something we can't understand. If Hashem knows the future and He knows what you're going to do, how could you have free will, etc.? And the Rambam says, like, so make it so it doesn't make sense to you. I don't care. But know this. There's such a thing as free will. You can choose. Right? And the Bechira is Mikari Mailis Avodas Adam. It's one of the essential qualities of what we have to give to God. It's like a fundamental service to Hashem that we can choose. So how could this be that when you get to your Yechida, the ultimate level of a Jew, suddenly your free will goes away? That's like, Mamish doesn't make any sense. So therefore we have to say, so this is like a very, the Rebbe is sort of taking on some pretty heavy hitters over here, i.e. the Alter Rebbe, explaining it. He says that we have to say this that we say that when it comes to the Yechida, it's impossible to be any other way. You will always be Moser Nefesh. It does not mean that it's a forced, done deal. That it can't, like the lottery, you're subjected suddenly to your soul, which is going to make you do such and such. But rather that the Bechira Shelah Ba'atzmus Hiya Sholeles Shelo Yeh Nasinas Makom Ve'Sharus Lios Nifer Chas V'Shalom. So if you're reading inside, I'll translate that again. But rather the Bechira of it. What does it mean that when you get that there's no other way? It means that the choice of your Atzmus, of your Yechida, negates Sholeles Shelo Yeh Nasinas Makom. It negates the fact there will not be place and a possibility to separate yourself from God. It's like the same thing that happens to the Eibishter. When you get to your Yechida, it's similar to what happens to the Eibishter. Like when you go to the essential place of God, it's not that God forbid He's forced to choose Yaakov. It's just that He chooses Yaakov. Right? That's His choice. So what we're saying when it comes down to when you unleash your Yechida, that suddenly like you have no other choice but to give over your soul. It's not that you have no other choice. It's that that's the real choice of your soul. You've unleashed what you really are and what you really want and who the real you is. That's what it means you have no other choice but to. It means, because that's the choice that you're going to make at that place. When you get to your Yechida, you're going to make a choice, and the choice is going to be for God every single time. Not because you're forced, because that's what you really want.
So the choice is to get to your Yechida?
It's not always a choice. Sometimes that comes upon you if someone's going to make you bow down to idols. But in Tanya, it makes it sound like you like a genie out of a bottle. You remove all the blockages, and you're faced with like the God in you, and it's going to do the right thing. But what he's saying is that it's going to choose to do the right thing because you get to your essence, and that's what your essence decides to do. Not because it suddenly reveals that it can't do anything else. It reveals that it doesn't want to do anything else.
The essence decides something else?
It can, of course. It's a free choice, but it doesn't decide something else. Never. God always chooses. Esav and Yaakov are brothers, but Yaakov I love and Esav I hate. In other words, God is not like a person that is wishy-washy when it comes to choosing. Right? He knows what He wants to choose.
The other one doesn't. One's evil, one's good.
Not at the level where before they even have a hishtalshalus.
Okay, so
seriously, because you're talking about why is one evil and one good? They're all the same at a certain level.
I have a question for you. You got a Jew, a Muslim, and a Christian. And they're all three equal in their devotion to God. You're telling me that God chooses every time the Jew and chooses and doesn't take the others. Why can't He choose all three?
Because that's not what He chooses. In other words, there's a choice to make.
Why?
There's no why. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. If there was a why, first of all, it wouldn't be a choice.
How do we know that there's a choice to make there?
What do you mean, how do you know there's a choice to make?
How do we know that
I guess it depends on if there's...
Hashem pushes somebody away and takes the other?
Well, I mean, this is a situation where one wants to...
It's gotta be that he takes off.
One wants to overcome the other one. In other words, it's either or. Because that's what Haman was saying.
So that's when there's some sort of a competition, a battle or something he chooses.
Right, but the very second that you say a Christian, a Muslim, and a Jew, even if they're not fighting with each other, there's a huge battle being waged about what is the correct philosophy of life. In other words, is it true that Muhammad was a prophet and therefore it undoes the Torah and so forth? There's already a battle. The existence of those religions is very oppositional to what we're saying. That's why it comes out with swords and bullets half the time. Because basically we're in a serious disagreement right there.
Were you saying choose between religions or just a person
I'm
from
saying
each
when
religion?
God has three righteous people in front of him, how do we know that he always chooses the Jew and not chooses all three of three righteous people that are committed to my...
When you say choosing, it depends what you mean. If you're talking about choosing one over the other, okay?
Well,
Or you're saying they could choose all three.
right.
So what does it mean to choose all three? That's not a choice. That's leaving things everybody's
That means
open.
Hashem would love all three.
Love all three.
Instead of Esav and Yaakov, there's a choice. One's in, one's out.
Okay, but put it like this. They are oppositional, right? So that's basically choosing not to choose. You're saying basically, what do you like better, red or blue? And you say, I like blue and red. That's not a choice. Right? So if you want to say that Hashem doesn't make a choice, I agree with you. There's a level called the lottery, where basically all things are equal and no choice has to be made. But you know what winds up happening there is that the bad guys are going to get it over there. They're going to say, oh, if there's no choice being made by Hashem, I'll make the choice.
But as soon as there's something bad, then there is something that comes into the choice.
It's like
Right.
It's
but
like-
if
it's
they're
like-
But
all-
I'm saying there's something bad just by the nature of there being like foreign religions which basically deny the truth of the Torah.
I mean, I don't know what else to say.
But
I
you
don't
can't
even
blame
care
them.
about
They
the
didn't
religions.
get
I'm
the
talking
Torah.
about the souls.
Have you ever seen like
Most
have
people
you ever
don't
seen
even know that
baseball?
there really is a choice.
You know what baseball, the sport?
Like we're lucky. We have
Okay,
the Torah.
during
We
the
have
All-Star
something-
game, they literally have all the best players in the All-Star game, right? But the manager has to choose the batting order. It has to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't mean that number 1 is better than number 5, but he has to choose an order. You can't just say, all right, I have all the All-Stars in baseball, and they're all going to bat first. It's not possible. There has to be an order. It has to be choice. It's not saying someone's better than one. It's just there's a choice that has to be made. Does that make sense? In a baseball analogy.
All right, just to finish this little footnote, looks like we're not going to get out of this one here right now. But so he says that really, what is it? It's just an amazing concept. I've never seen this anywhere else in Hasidus. It's like this little footnote, Mamish, is really enlightening to the whole Tanya over there. He says that what does it mean when you get to your Yechida? It doesn't mean like this superpower overtakes you and all of a sudden godliness just flows out of your veins. It means that you get to your essence and you make that choice. It's a mamish personal choice that you make from that standpoint. And that's what he says, al derech, in the brackets in the footnote, la'achlifam ba'uma acheres eini yachol. So Hashem also says a similar vort, like it's impossible to choose something other than God. It's impossible to deny God on our part. Hashem also says it's impossible for me to switch them with another nation. And the Rebbe says the same thing. What do you mean it's impossible? Hashem has no choice. It's not impossible. This is because the choice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Jewish people, it was a free choice, because He chooses us, therefore it becomes impossible. Therefore He cannot, so to speak, switch us with another nation. It's not because His hands are tied, it's because that's His choice. It's to not switch us with another nation. Therefore it comes out of His mouth. I can't switch them with another nation. They're my choice. But it's something automatic that it's forced, which would make like a limited, there's some kind of, like we said by the lottery, there's a limitation because you're stuck with whatever the lottery says. That's not what's happening here. If you go to the very source of the matter and you determine, again, for no reason, you have to keep this in mind, it is baffling, right? That's what we're trying to say. There's no reason for it. It's not because we're better, it's not because they're worse, nothing. It's just something essential in the Eibishter that He chooses it, and therefore it becomes rule inside of all levels of reality, including the level of the lottery where all things seem equal. They're not equal anymore. Okay, so we're going to have to hold here, but yeah.
Okay, that's the one scenario. Then we're talking about us being at the essence,
Yes.
right? And we still have the choice, but we always choose God,
Yeah.
right?
What do you mean?
Huh?
Yeah, because at that level of your essence, the Yechida, okay, you see
There's
that
nothing